another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now. I'm really excited about this episode too. I have the awesome pleasure of introducing you to JoJo Jones, and she's going to talk a little bit about her journey and share a few secrets with you. Welcome.
Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you.
You too.
Most people call me JoJo, so that works as well.
Okay, JoJo, I
Okay,
got that.
yes,
We can
yes.
do that.
You-
We can do that. So would you like to share with the audience a little bit about your story?
For sure. So I'm a Cali girl. I grew up in the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley. I feel like I came online when the world kind of came online. So like I've always been in tech. My dad was an engineer at Lockheed, Missiles and Space. My mom worked for the Pentagon. So I've had an opportunity to, I guess, be around it, even though I wasn't in it. The interesting thing, though, is, growing up in Cali, it was really competitive. So I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to get in tech as a young girl. I was reading early. I've been multilingual for a while. I've been in advanced education when I was younger. But the people I'm competing against were from other countries. They're getting like 4.5 GPAs. There was no chance I was going to get into like your Stanford down the street or your UC anything. So I went to the military. That was my sort of way of escaping just the drama between my parents. They went through like a 16-year custody battle for me. And so, by the time I was 17, I was ready to go. I was ready to get up out the house. So,
Well, thank you first for your service. I truly appreciate your service in the military. I tell any vet that it's important that we, that we thank you for the things and the opportunities that you gave to us, because we can't take that for granted,
Right.
And so you gave up a sacrifice and did a lot. So thank you for that. So you said it was a 16-year battle between your mom and dad for custody.
Yeah. They used to throw down fight. I'm talking about like when it was my dad's weekend, he would drive, because I grew up between the Bay Area and Sacramento. And my dad would drive down like it's my weekend, and they would wrestle. Like I remember one particular time, like they literally each one of them had an arm, and they were wrestling me down like in the park. My dad was like, "Run!" My mom was like, "Stay!" And I froze. And I'm like, all my friends are around, and they acted a fool behind me. And I'm not the only child. I have 8 siblings. I'm the only one between them two. For whatever reason, they just felt like fighting over me. And it was traumatizing in some ways. My dad kidnapped me for a little bit. My mom had to hire investigators to find me. He had enrolled me in school and everything. And I remember one particular time I snuck and called her because I was really good at numbers. And I was like, "Mom, I miss you." I was really, really young. And she was like, "Where are you?" And she's kind of like panicking. And I'm like, "I can't tell you, but I learned this new song." And I sang, my dad had me in private school, and I sang the anthem for my private school, "We're Martin Luther King Christian Academy." My mom had the investigator down at that school like the next day. Yeah, she was no joke. My mom, Deborah, was no joke. So it was interesting. And because of, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was really, really difficult, choosing between both parents who love you. They're not expressing it in the most healthiest of ways. So I've been in therapy. I've been in therapy since as long as I can remember. The courts were like, "Okay, we need to make sure this girl is okay because these parents are not getting along." But I mean, looking back on it now, I see how they loved me. It's just, I wish it was done in a more healthy way.
Okay. How long were you in the military?
I did 8 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I joined when I was a minor, actually. I was 17. I did like what they call, I guess, a split option. You can still serve while you're in high school. My dad didn't live in the country. He lived in the Dominican Republic. So he wasn't on my birth certificate. So because of that, I needed my parents' permission in order for me to go. But we said we didn't know who my dad was. And so I only needed my mom's permission. And it seemed like the military knew exactly what they wanted me to do. The only thing is I just needed to score high on my test. And I was always really, really good at scoring high on my test. And I ended up going in as a psychological operations specialist. There's not very many of us of color in that field, not many women as well. So I shipped off right after I graduated high school.
What is that? Tell us a little bit about the field.
PSYOP.
Yeah. What is PSYOP?
Okay. Well, I could tell you the technical term.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like influencing target audiences towards U.S. objectives. It's basically understanding the motives of your target, understanding how they think and how to get what you want from that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is an interesting,
Yeah.
that's very interesting in terms of thinking about another area of going into. I'd never heard of,
Yeah.
those kinds of roles, but it's great that they have those things available. I'm sure they need it because you need to understand how people are thinking and all that in the military. So, congratulations on 8 years of doing something that not only not a lot of women do, but a lot of people of color. Congratulations on that.
It's crazy. It was a crazy experience because you have to train to special forces standards, and they're nuts in a good way, but there's a lot of different tactics that you learn, and they're one practiced on you, so you understand how to utilize them on others as well.
Oh,
So
that's wow.
yeah.
Yeah, so that gives you some skills that you can use even in your personal relationships as you continue to move forward to understand and understand others.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we're going to take a station break, but when we come back, I would like to understand your story following getting out of the military and some of the challenges that you faced and moving forward. So we're going to take a station break. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When I was in college, I had a college professor to tell me I would never, ever make it in technology. He told me that I needed to change my career, all because I took a test and got a D after studying so very hard. I knew at that point that I had to learn the game of life and survival. How did I do that? I really put on my game face so that they never knew what to expect, when, where, or how. See, life has all of its journeys and obstacles. We all have a story to tell, and we have many different paths that we take. My journey to this moment has not been easy. You have to play the game, play to win, and you win by wearing your game face. Welcome back. So after you went into the military, tell us what transpired after that point.
Well, there were some layers to that. So I graduated in 2001. 9/11 happened that year. So a lot of things changed while I was in duty. I had never been to New York really, other than when I was like traveling to go to the DR. But when I remember we were out in the field and they had mentioned like, oh, some planes crashed into the World Trade Center. And I had no idea that, it's hard when because we didn't have access to like TV at the time, it's hard to really describe when someone comes back and tells you that like a plane crashed into a building. I'm thinking like maybe just knocked off an antenna or something. So it wasn't for a while that we learned like just how like the gravity of the situation. We quickly saw how things changed. We were on 24-hour like roving guard. We couldn't travel the same way. We didn't have a lot of the like freedoms to move about after that. So a lot of things changed. And then there's this whole big like fear of getting deployed. And then for me, I got pregnant. And that was an interesting layer because at the time, the military gave me permission to go to college. I had got accepted to Grambling State while I was in basic training. So they gave me permission to go to university at that time. And that's where I met my son's father. But that situation was a little bit violent at that time. So it was hard. It's like, okay, you got, possible deployment. You have, this violent situation that I'm in, and just the uncertainty of the world at that time. So, what I did was I had my son. I had my son in 2004, and during that time with the military, I traveled a bit, learning different things, meeting different people. So life was just changing. It was just a new way of thinking and dealing with things. And so I had to deal with motherhood as a soldier as well. So
Wow. And now, talk a little bit about motherhood as a soldier. People always are curious about how do they help you? Do you? I mean, because you're deployed. I mean, you're in the service. So how do you get help with as a mom?
At that time, it was weird because my son's father was not in the military. So
Mm-hmm.
as I was traveling, people would look at me like, is your husband, military? And I'm like, no, I'm the soldier, and I got this big belly. I didn't know anything about maternity BDUs. You think of uniforms and you don't realize, okay, your belly's growing. And I had to go to get specially made BDUs to be able to do my duty while I was growing. My stomach is growing, and then the fact that, I was in this abusive situation, trying to balance all of that. I had support, and usually the support I got were from the married women of soldiers. They were it's like a whole other community when you have these women who, even if they're not serving, they know what that life is like. So they would tell me about different resources. My immediate command was, this is where I seen brothers who were like strong and supportive of women, because there's not a lot, again, there's not a lot of women in PSYOP. So they really didn't know how to deal with me, yeah, at that time. And so it's like, I mean, I guess I kind of just dealt with it. I dealt with it. There were some different things that happened. You still have to deal with different levels of abuse even within the military. Without getting into many details of that, it's just, it was good that I had the support of like strong Black men while I was in.
That's awesome. So you continued on down the technology track, huh?
Well, at the time I wasn't in tech. I ended up in 2006. My father came back into the country, and he had lost a lot of weight, and that's when we discovered that he had pancreatic cancer. And I had no idea that it was, I had a newborn. He was about 1.5. My father ended up dying within that month. He actually wanted to go back to the DR, but there was no way he was going to get on a plane at that point. And when my dad passed, it was probably really, really traumatic for me. I don't think I was fully ready for that type of loss, and I kind of ran. I didn't really know how to deal with things. I left my son with my mom. Or my mom, she said, well, while you go get your head together, leave the baby with me. And I went to Atlanta. I had heard a lot about Atlanta. I had people who were in college in Atlanta and in California, and they would come out to visit. And so I left my son with my mom, and I came to Atlanta. And it was a whole new world for me. I thought it's the South. I'm gonna run circles around these people, and Atlanta threw me for a loop. It was a little wild, like coming from the suburbs of California was a bit much. But I ended up getting, settled. I partied hard for a good year, Monday through Sunday. There was always something to do here. And then I missed my baby, and so I sent for my son to come with me to Georgia, and we got established out here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in Georgia now?
Since 2006, off and on, and that's a little bit of the story too. So I ended up getting a job in finance eventually, and it was stressful. I felt like I was paycheck to paycheck, because mind you, I dropped out of college, so student loans were coming due. Everybody was hitting me up for money, and I didn't have it. I was barely surviving, and it was crazy for me working for a bank, dealing with multi-million-dollar accounts, and like barely having enough gas to get to work, and it was a struggle. And I'm eating cheese grits every day to make sure my son is good, and trying to survive. And it wasn't just me. It's like this working class of people who are barely surviving. We make too much money for government assistance, but not really enough to like really thrive. It's just paycheck to paycheck. And one day I had it. I was I was getting sick of it. I didn't want to complain anymore. And so like I packed up my little oatmeal and my tea and I said, bye y'all on a Friday. And I booked a flight out the country and I left.
All right, well, we're going to pick up on that story when we come back. And we're also going to see if we have a question or comment from the audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When I was in college, I had a college professor to tell me I would never, ever make it in technology. He told me that I needed to change my career, all because I took a test and got a D after studying so very hard. I knew at that point that I had to learn the game of life and survival. How did I do that? I really put on my game face so that they never knew what to expect, when, where, or how. See, life has all of its journeys and obstacles. We all have a story to tell, and we have many different paths that we take. My journey to this moment has not been easy. You have to play the game, play to win, and you win by wearing your game face. Welcome back. Okay, so let's continue with this fascinating story.
So, once I left the country, at that time, I was getting into tech. My son is a gamer, so we were getting hacked a lot. My son was learning about tech, and I figured I needed to know more than him. I did, because he was doing things like he would get an attitude and suddenly our network wouldn't work or our Wi-Fi would be down. So I'm like, I need to know what he's doing and to make sure whatever he's doing is the right way, because coming from the Bay Area, I knew that, they'll snatch up the cat, dog, grandma, everybody. Well, if you're doing the wrong thing in the house with technology. So I started to learn stuff. I met people when I was in Central America at that time. Grids were crashing because of crypto mining. So I learned a lot about hacking, a lot about AI. And a company found me. Accenture found me. At that time, again, I'm a college dropout. I had no certifications. I hadn't built a full application at that time. And they offered me a position as a software engineer.
So you got a software engineer without a degree.
Not a thing.
Now I want you all to hear that. Without a degree or a thing,
Yes.
She got an opportunity. What do you think drew you to them?
I feel like I was putting nuggets out there. Again, I was understanding AI. And what I did was I felt like I left breadcrumbs for, how does someone, how do I find someone who's looking for someone like me? And they found me. And, even as I worked for Accenture, I had no idea like what it was that they found in me. They gave me an opportunity in all sorts of areas: front-end development, back-end development, cloud. I got into cloud security, and eventually got into cybersecurity. And then I got a referral for Deloitte, and that was life-changing. So to go from really rapidly from like, pretty much bankrupt to like making six figures, it was a big jump for me. I had to learn like rapidly about generational wealth. I had already started to learn about the history of our people here in the Americas, the Caribbean, and some of what has happened to us to get to this sort of level. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to overcome generational curses and do it for my son.
And you see what I'm saying? Overcome generational curses. I need you to hear that. I need you to hear that, she didn't have what everybody said you have to have in order to succeed. And look at where she is today. Look at the things she's able to do. She's making a good income. She is really helping and showing her son. She has technology in her background that is transferable anywhere, doing anything.
Yeah.
So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you.
You know, that is phenomenal. You know, we go through a lot of trials and tribulations, but look at where you are on the other side of the mountain.
It's a
Look at
blessing.
that.
It's a blessing.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have a question or a comment from the audience.
Well, JoJo, thank you for being here with us today, and just love your fascinating experience, specifically the technology and how you were able to migrate into a technology field. Question I would have is for anyone that's, let's say, in high school that's considering a career in the military. Are there any best practices or anything over the last 8 years when you were serving that you would recommend, or just nuggets that you would drop for anyone that's considering that for a career?
Definitely, especially because my son's now 18. It's been a while. What I tell him, because I wanted him to join the military too, know what you want to do. I knew I wanted to do something like super fancy, high tech kind of thing. I had no idea what PSYOP was, but the thing is, PSYOP, I felt like at the time it didn't really transfer well into the civilian world unless I was going to work for, certain, ABC organizations, right? So if you have an idea of the career you want, I think it helps to align that career in the military with what you want to do in the civilian world. Because I really wanted to get into tech when I was in the military. At the time, they were outsourcing it to contractors. So now, they have cyber units and Space Force units and all this high-flying stuff, but they didn't really have that. So I think, now there's an opportunity for young adults to look at what they want to do in the future and how the military can align with that.
What would you suggest to someone who doesn't know what they want to do? We got a lot of people who are like, I'm not sure what I should do.
Yeah.
What do you recommend that they start with, or how they begin to discover some of those things going into the military?
Yeah, and I see that common. I'm on the board of a nonprofit with Hype based out of Atlanta, and we mentor young girls in tech. That's kind of how we met.
Yes.
Through Christina. And a lot of people don't know, even as adults. I'm almost 40, and I didn't exactly, walk the path straight to technology, but there's a lot of transferable skills, So what I did was I started what I liked doing. I knew I wanted to make money from anywhere in the world. And so technology for me was that avenue to be able to do that, Since then, this year alone, I've traveled to 4 continents. I've brought my son with me. We just came back from Morocco. I was in Panama, So it's like I started with what I love to do. I love to travel. I've traveled my whole life. So, I just aligned with that, and that's what I recommend for anybody. Do what you love.
And that's important. Let's follow our passion. Let's do what we love, and then it kind of works out. It's we spend so much time at work, whatever work is, right? Doesn't matter. That we need to enjoy what we're doing, and the path that you took. I think the message here, the hidden secret here is it was non-traditional. It was not a traditional path. And look at where you sit today. Look at the experiences, the exposures, and the things you've been able to do. And to that same point, look at how much your son has been exposed to,
My son
and
is
how
lit.
much he's been able to go,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure he looks at mama in awe.
Yeah.
Look at mama. Ah,
We have a blast. We have a blast.
In terms of the fact that, being able to do all of these things together.
Yeah.
This has just been a fascinating journey. I enjoyed listening to your story and your testimony, and I want to thank you for coming today. Can you all join me in thanking my guests? Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now, where we tell all those hidden secrets to help everyone else. See you next time.